Alright, listen, we're at CSCS and we got 5 qualifying sessions in the day and we got a shootout at the end of the day for a podium. So the plan is to use the Hoosiers in the morning in the first session and set the best time I possibly can so I can use the rest of the qualifying sessions to test out the Michelins. If the Michelins are good, we use them in the shootout. If the A7s were better, we're going to use the A7. So let's see what happens. Back at it once again. Boys are here. The crew. Since the last time I was at Cayuga, they actually repaved some of the runoffs and actually added a little bit extra. So you'll see me in this session going really wide and trying some of the new pavement to see if it improves the racing line. And then I try it for the first couple of laps until I decide I'm just going to go back with the old line. Except for a couple places like the chicane where you can cut a little bit extra. But for the most part, it wasn't a lot faster because the new pavement was very bumpy. The transition from the new pavement to the old pavement. So that's unfortunate, but again, I had to try it out. After 3 laps, I'm pretty happy with the lap times because these front tires are 3 years old plus. I think the date code is 2022 and they've been heat cycled to crap. Anyway, enjoy the session. Each lap gets progressively faster. I actually set the fastest time of the day in this very first session on the 3rd lap at 10 in the morning, so that's kind of cool. Immediately, without a shadow of a doubt, these tires were way more sticky than the A7s, just way better. But there were some drawbacks, and you're gonna notice them in this session. The first one is that the gears got stupendously long because the tires are bigger, so now the gear ratio is longer than it already was. The other thing you're gonna notice is that the car got really bouncy, and the main reason for this is because now the car is so low that the roll center is actually way too low as well. It's actually below the ground. And without drawing a whole bunch of lines and overcomplicating the whole thing, basically the lower control arms are now angled up, so now when the suspension cycles, the tire actually tries to move in towards the center of the car. What this means is, under lateral load, when you turn the car in under lateral G, the suspension is actually trying to compress vertically because of the lateral load. And you'll see this in this diagram. Because the tire is moving inwards, it tries to absorb the lateral motion into the spring. And I was actually low on suspension travel to begin with because the car was so low, it was an inch from the bump stops, that the lateral load was actually shoving the suspension into the bump stops and then making the car oscillate weird and bounce like crazy in corners where it actually really got loaded up and gripped up. And it was actually three-wheeling like under the smallest turn-in. But either way, it was fun to drive. I'll talk about it a bit more at the end of the video. But anyway, something happens at the end of the session, and it's not good. weekend, a strap came out and put a hole in the rad, and probably put a hole in the gearbox casing because we got oil coming out. So I already changed. I'm already out of the suit.
I don't know where the oil though is coming from.
It's the gearbox. I got one. I don't need. I'm just gonna load it up. Just draining. I'm straining the water so it doesn't leak.
How more high boost for you? I think it works better.
Yeah, it's good. I took a wider line into 9 instead.
Fuck, man.
But yeah. The gearbox is good. It's nothing to stress there, but it's just literally it's a scrap pressure plate and it's been working.
So this pressure plate went to shit.
Yeah, and it kept on vibrating more and more, and I'm like, all right, I feel it. You know, you feel it in the floor,
yeah,
right?
You feel it right away.
Especially with solid motor mounts. And right when I lifted there, it just I went. Same thing that happened at Motorsports. Yeah. Same thing that happens every time it blows up. Like it's at a high RPM lift when the straps get compressed.
Yeah, you gotta
it compresses
a little bit.
Yeah.
The only way to avoid that is to get a pressure plate that has those straps.
If you do that, we're done for the year. You get what I'm saying? I could buy like 10 pressure plates for the cost of one twin disc, right? Sure. And then that's 20 years of running. Yeah. Yeah. So we did dry a lot of stuff up at the track and cleaned everything, so that's just residual hopefully. Like I drained the gearbox out, drained all the water out after that happened. And this isn't the first time a pressure plate is blown up and put a hole in the rad. If you've been a subscriber for any amount of time, but I don't know, the solution really is just to change pressure plates more often, I think, because I can't get a good twin disc for this car. I'd have to design one or buy an experimental one and go through all the headaches again. I'm probably just gonna buy more of the same pressure plate because it holds the power well and the pedal feels nice, and just change it more often. Oh, and these tires, these things are crazy. These things, they weren't even really fully up to temperature. This temp sticker just barely passed 77 degrees. So usually the Hoosiers get up to around like boiling point, so like 100 degrees. And then they still kind of work. And these are actually kind of meant to work in that upper range. And they were still really good on grip for that. But the wheel diameter is freaking massive, so I actually had to add some timing to actually get the wheel torque back, or the torque at the ground back, because these are 4.6% larger in diameter, so 680 divided by 650. So 4.5% larger means 4.5% less torque, which means you need 4.5% more torque to actually get the car to accelerate the same in each gear. And 4.5% of torque equated to about 2 to 3 degrees of timing added. So that's what I did. I added 2 degrees after testing this in the first session, because you could feel the car was a dog coming out of corners. And then I could just pin it in second gear and it just wasn't spinning at all. Usually I'm like tiptoeing it, even with good Hoosiers. So there's that. Tired of holding the camera. So I actually had to drive a different line just to keep it in boost in a couple corners, which was doable, but I didn't really get enough laps to actually figure that out. But again, it's kind of redundant because I don't think I'm actually going to run wheels this big after these tires are done, because so I said it was 4.5% bigger. To actually get it back into range, I need a final drive of like whatever, multiply it by 4.5%, so it's going to be like a 4.18 or something, just off the top of my head. What this did, by going to this size of tire, it made the 405 that's in the car become a 3.87 relative to what the other tire is. The car was doing 153, 155 in second gear, almost on the limiter, and then it did 226 in third gear, and then by the math it should top out at like 233, 232. So that's just way too tall. It's actually too tall for Motorsport as well. Like, I know what somebody might be thinking, and that's what Diogo's also saying. Could run these at Motorsport because they're big and it's a big track and the tall gear might be good. But the problem is running in third gear all the time there, you're part throttle mid-corner because you're kind of overloading the tire if you're in such a low gear. So actually upshifting in turns like turn 4 and then turn 2 even is actually better because the wheel torque is reduced enough to where you can actually turn the car because front wheel drive, right? So I'm gonna finish these tires regardless because they're really damn good. But I need to go back to 650 diameter wheels. That might not be till, I don't know. As far as you know, it'll be in the next video. So I'm gonna end it there. Thanks for watching.